All guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, like ESPN's NFL insider KC Joyner, who joins us now on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. It sounds kind of odd, doesn't it? The Philadelphia Eagles have got away from the Detroit Lions and the San Diego Chargers and the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. They're no longer a part of that fraternity.
Man, yeah, having to share that with the Cleveland Browns especially, that has to hurt a lot. And now, no, you don't have to anymore. Now you can hold over Lombardi and say, we got one. I mean, that's awesome company to be in.
Unbelievable. Let me start with Foles. If you were to say Nick Foles was the reason they won the game, he would have to play the game of his life. And essentially he did last night. How was Nick Foles able to be a step ahead of the New England defense all night?
Pass protection. That has to be the key. He only got contacted on 2.1% of his dropbacks. I mean, that's an incredibly low number. I mean, your team wants to be in double digits, and 2.1% just means 1 out of 50. It basically means you only touch the guy one time, and that's huge. And the Patriots did get a 29.5% pass pressure rate, which is a solid number, but it took them blitzing nearly 30% of the time to do it, which is more than they wanted to do. So even they were sending people and doing everything they could to try to get pressure on Foles and try and hit him. Just didn't happen. And when he gives that guy some kind of pressure, like no pressure at all, and give him a lot of good options underneath, hey, you're going to see that kind of a game.
He was able to spread it around, too. I mean, Aguilar, Jeffrey, Ertz, but maybe Clement came out of nowhere last night to have over 100 yards receiving in the game. The fact that the Eagles are able to spread the ball around, they don't have that one guy, makes it very difficult to defend.
Yeah, I'll tell you where it really stood out was on vertical passes. We've been talking the last couple of weeks that Foles only throws 8 vertical passes a game in the playoffs. They really don't want to throw the ball that much, and it usually goes to specific targets. He had targets to 6 different players on vertical passes. That's when you're throwing 11 or more yards downfield, trying to stretch the defense. And he had completions to 4 different receivers and touchdowns to 2 different receivers on vertical passes. So Foles wasn't just good vertically speaking. He was able to spread it all around and make New England have to worry about everybody on this team.
Yeah, it's something that you had mentioned. The last 3 games he played in the regular season, he didn't complete 1 vertical pass.
No, and in the playoffs, he only had 8 attempts on them, and they just got to the point where they said, the Atlanta game, it was, hey, we're trying to do slugfest, so I get that. But against Minnesota, part of it was game flow, but also they just said, look, we're not going to have you throw vertical. When we do, we're going to have you throw really deep. And yesterday, they got more of a mixer in. They found ways to not only go to stretch vertical, the real deep passes, but also in the vertical passes. He still only threw 14 vertical passes, not a huge number compared to Brady's 20, but 14 is the most he's had in the playoffs, and he was able to get 190 yards in those throws.
Yeah, they took their shots down the field. They completed a couple. The one was an interception, but he actually completed the pass for a second there. Jeffrey couldn't haul it in, but the fact that they kept the Patriots guessing, I thought was a big difference, and they were able to run, too, 164 yards on the ground.
I thought the brilliant part of this game plan, the brilliant part, we were talking about Peterson and how he was able to get Atlanta to play a game they didn't want to play, to get Minnesota to play a game they didn't want to play. Against the Patriots, he didn't quite do that, but they had 71 offensive plays, did the Eagles yesterday, and on 44 of those plays, or just short of 2/3 of those plays, they either ran the ball, had a play-action pass, or a screen pass, which means we're getting our offensive line involved in those plays. You're having to worry about our blockers on every one of those plays. I think Peterson said before the game, I want to make sure that New England has to worry about our blockers all the time, not just on running plays and a couple passing plays. And it was a big difference in the game.
I want to ask you about Peterson, a play caller and play designer. I mean, I don't know if he evolved just from one year to the next, or what has made Peterson such a different head coach than the guy we saw last year.
I think he got to the point last year where there are times in coaches when they look at the X's and O's, they just see the X's and O's and say, well, it works in the X's and O's, works on paper, great, it works in the game. And I think he realized after last year that I shouldn't be asking players to do things they're not capable of doing. Like even look out yesterday on the Burton touchdown pass to Foles. I mean, Burton's a guy who's played quarterback before, and he didn't try and have a receiver who hasn't done that before. So I've got a guy who's played quarterback before, is going to be relaxed when he throws the ball, unlike what Amendola was when he was jumping in the air to throw to Brady. He's going to throw a clean pass, things like that. He's getting players to do what they can do rather than just trusting what the X's and O's say people can do.
KC Joyner is with us. Yeah, there was a play. You mentioned play action. There was a play. He goes play action to the right side. He kind of squats down, and he zings one into Ertz there. The fact that they play called aggressive, too. I mean, Peterson believed in Foles last night.
He did, and again, 14 vertical passes is not a huge number, but he had him throw on some aggressive shorter passes too. But you're asking Foles to do when you are going vertical, you're really going vertical. And again, I think he wanted to make sure we're going to be aggressive so that New England doesn't just think we're faking. Like some teams will come out at the beginning of a game, they'll throw one big long pass, make the other team think that's what we're going to do, and then by about the end of the second quarter, the other team goes, "Hey, they're not going vertical. We can go ahead and relax about that." Peterson made sure it was no. Foles will go vertical. Now we're not going to make it the center piece of our offense, but we're going to go vertical offense. Where New England's going to say we can't ever think he's not going to throw the vertical pass because he's going to do a huge difference.
But he also, I mean, the vertical passes he threw it. I mean, the one to Jeffrey makes a great catch, but that ball's right on the money. I mean, he was very accurate last night in that game.
There's one corner route that he threw. I forget who it was to. There's one corner route where he just got it right over the linebacker, and there's this tiny bucket. That's what they call it when you drop it into a receiver. They call it dropping it in a bucket. There's this tiny bucket that he gets in there, and it was an incredible pass. By the way, of his 14 vertical passes that we talked about in the other two games, how if you're going to go deep, you really go deep. 8 of them were stretch vertical passes. That's where you're throwing the ball 20 or more yards downfield. He got 102 yards and 2 touchdowns on those passes. So again, it was we're going to make you worry about vertical passes, 6 vertical passes, but here's 8 stretch verticals to go along with that, and those are the ones that really scare a defense.
You look at another part of the offense last night. I mean, by the way, Foles played in the game last night. We talked about Peterson and the play calling, but the 2 4th down conversions. I mean, the one to Ertz. We had one of our Eagles guys on earlier. He said he talked to Frank Reich. He said, what if you guys don't convert that? He said, game's over. We lose that game. They know that play was for the game right there. So the 4th and 1 to Ertz, and then, of course, the pass to Foles. I mean, those are the type of plays that make you Super Bowl champions because a lot of teams either take the 3 or punt in those 2 situations.
And the thing is, on the pass to Ertz, it's they call it low crossers, where you've got 2 players running drag crosses across the middle, and they try and run so close to each other they'll pick the defender off. Not an offensive pass interference pick, but make the 2 defenders run into each other. And they did that with Ertz. And you think this is the Patriots; they got to know that play's coming, and Belichick is and is going to be a guy who's going to coach his defense up on how to stop those plays. You think back to the Seattle Super Bowl where Malcolm Butler jumps and makes an interception. You think they're going to have that when Ertz runs that pass, he's wide open on that play. Exactly what the Eagles wanted to happen happened. Whoever was covering him ran into another defender. In fact, I think he ran into the receiver, but he initiated the contact. Easily not an offensive pass interference, and he got the pass. So it's not, they knew what to run against the Patriots. And again, the Patriots look like they made a lot of mistakes yesterday, especially on defense. And I think Peterson got in their heads.
How about the play to Foles, the pass to Foles? I mean, that's a play that you don't see all the time. They didn't run it all year. They said they got it from watching the Bears. They practice it here and there. But to call that play there and execute it the way they did, I mean, that play there will go down as one of the more memorable in Eagles history, if not Super Bowl histories.
Yeah, I remember the Bears game. They did that, and I think the Bears did that in the second quarter of like week 6 or something. It's one thing to call it in that situation. It's another to call it. Yeah, we need a touchdown in the Super Bowl. We're gonna go there with it. That's incredible. Well, 2 things. One, they got to be thankful they didn't get an illegal formation penalty on that because there were only 6 men on the line of scrimmage on that play. The isolated receiver on the right-hand side was kind of a yard back of the line of scrimmage, so they probably should have analyzed it. But B, Foles is just relaxed about it too. I mean, he just walks up to the line of scrimmage. The defense completely forgets about it. And again, Burton's been a quarterback before. In college, he was a quarterback.
Yep.
So he's a guy who's thrown the ball before, and he followed through. I kept looking at the replays last night. Burton just does a nice follow-through on his, he just a nice easy pass. And Amendola, when he's throwing to Brady, Amendola is jumping into the air, doing like a Norm Van Brocklin jump pass. I'm like, why are you doing that? And that's the reason why there's the difference in completions on those plays.
A lot on the offensive side of the ball, but the Eagles' defense, we thought coming into the game, Casey, would be the difference in the game, that would be why they won, that they could get Brady moving around. Didn't happen until they needed it the most. They didn't get pressure on him all night until they needed it the most. So why were they unable to get to Brady?
I mean, it was a lot of it was you're just not throwing that many. You're not getting. the Eagles, first off, Patriots for pass blocking is very good. I would grade them as an A- going into this game for the season. They are that good. Brady throws a lot of dink and dunk passes. I was really concerned that the Eagles didn't do a lot of, the Eagles didn't blitz that much either, by the way, only 18% of the time, which is typical for a Schwartz defense. He's not going to trust the cornerbacks any more than he has to, so he's not going to blitz that much. So that was part of it. But I didn't like how infrequently they were running stunts and things of that nature on the defensive line. It was like they were just saying, you could see their outside edge rushes. It was just, okay, well, and guess what? Speed rush to the outside. Speed rush to the outside. I'm like, can you guys bull rush? I mean, we saw Harrison bull rush Vitae back in the quarterback one time late in the game. It's like, do that. Do a mixer or something. So there was really predictable pass rushing by the Patriots, or the Eagles as well.
Yeah, and then obviously the Eagles, whose defense had really got them to this point, had some issues. But on that final play, it was kind of apropos that it was Brandon Graham, because he was the guy that nobody wanted. They wanted JPP. They wanted Earl Thomas. Graham was the guy they traded up for years ago. And it was interesting because all night long, and really his career, he's not a big sack guy, but he's always right there, it seems like. He's always getting pressure. And for him to be the guy there, but if you notice on that play, Casey, he was slid inside playing tackle to get that extra rush, and that was kind of the difference in the night. Right there. That play, I think, might be the biggest play in the history of the franchise.
I believe, and I know from watching Michigan tape, I believe that Graham did play inside some when he was at Michigan. So I think it's part of the reason the Eagles got him and said, we know if we have to, we can play him inside. And he said the postgame last night, he said during the interviews that he knew the way the Eagles defense had lined up that the center was going to be going to the left. He was not going to be getting, he knew I've got a one-on-one here. And he said, I've been bull rushing this guy all game, and now I'm going to take an inside move on him. I'm going to bull rush him and then rip to the inside to beat this guy, because I need to do something different. And that's where what I thought was most apropos for the defense, though, is it's the fourth quarter. Last year, Patriots run pace, Falcons run out of gas at the end of the game. Here it is, fourth quarter. Brandon Graham and that defensive line, they're still going at full speed. They're not, you're not winding those guys. They're not gasping for air. They're going full speed and pushing you to get to the quarterback. So it's like, hey, you guys tried pace, and it didn't work against this defense.
I think, there's so many big plays in that game, the strip sack, but there was a couple of other plays, Malcolm Jenkins has the hit on Cooks that really changed that game too, because what did New England lose by losing Brandon Cooks? Do you think that was a big difference maker in the game?
A huge difference in the game. Brandon Cooks last year in 2016, I should say, he was, I believe, in the top 3 in vertical yards per attempt and stretch vertical yards per attempt. I mean, you're talking a guy who tears the top off of defenses and can just outrun any corner and any safety. You can even put bracket coverage on the guy, high-low coverage on him. He still has the ability to go beat your guy over the top. So when you lose him, as good as Hogan is, you kind of have to play call Hogan on vertical passes. He's had great numbers in the past, but you've got to play call him up on vertical passes. So at that point, it was, okay, we know we can do more to – you can't say they kept him in check and you give up 505 yards passing, but when you're talking just from a personnel perspective, he can't tear at the top of our defense. Cooks can, and it was huge. When he went out, I was watching the game with my son, and when he went out, I said that's a huge loss, because there's it changes the whole dynamic of that offense, and they're just they couldn't throw for 600 if he was healthy all game.
What do you think the difference in the game was with Butler not playing for whatever reason it may have been? I mean, are you buying what Belichick selling, that they just thought they had the best personnel out there?
I think that there has to be – I think that when you read about all the intrigue with the Patriots and everything that's going on there, one of the things that seems that, according to the Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta article, one of the things that bothers Belichick is that he thinks that ownership is making football decisions. And he said in the article, he was quoted saying in the article, that when ownership starts to make football decisions, it's time for the coach to leave. I think there's something going on there, and he said, I'm making a football decision here because this is what I'm going to do. It's either players versus coaches or coaches versus managers. Something's there. He was trying to establish his authority in this last game, and I don't know what the exact reason was. Got no inside information, but when I'm looking at, that's the first thing I'm thinking of. He's winning a political battle there.
All right, so if you look at Rowe versus Butler, the player, I mean, the Eagles picked on Rowe a lot last night. They said, look, if this guy's going to be on the field, we're going to go after him. Now, he made a play early in the game, but they went after him a lot.
They did, and the thing is, you got to think about from that situation of, okay, you're putting a guy in the game. Rowe's really good. He's had some really good coverage numbers before, but it's like, okay, you're putting Rowe in the game. he was on the Eagles. They know how to attack him. I'm sure they've studied how to attack him because he played a lot this year. So they're going to have had him in their game plan to go. Okay, they know exactly what they want to do to him. So you're putting a guy in there not only who's probably not as good as Butler, but somebody who the other team knows how to go after and attack. So and the Eagles obviously had a reason to think that they didn't want Rowe in their long-term future. So they must have done some research and figured out this is what we don't like about the guy. So I mean, it's a double head scratcher, and it's one of those things again where I won't say that Belichick. I won't go as far as to say Belichick got out coached because there's only so much that they could have done with that defense. They were out personneled in that defense. But Doug Peterson did a ton of things right, and Belichick didn't do quite as many.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider here. Nick Foles, by the way, was 11 of 14 for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns on third down against the Patriots. I mean, an astounding passer rating of 158-1 on third down in the postseason. I guess I'll ask you this. Forget the fact Foles or Wentz. The Eagles are playing Carson Wentz. That's their guy. But do you think that other teams are going to start calling the Eagles immediately for Nick Foles?
I think the other teams should be calling. If I'm the Eagles, though, I still subscribe to the Al Davis theory of quarterback. I mean, back in the days of the Raiders, back when the Raiders were the powerhouse team, he always wanted a very good starter, and he wanted a veteran backup who could come in and win games. In fact, the best quarterback situation the Raiders may have ever had. They had Darryl LaMonica as their starter. He's a 2-time AFL MVP. They had George Blanda as their backup. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. And then they had Kenny Stabler as their 3, and he's also a Hall of Famer. So that's the kind of situation they want. Strong starter, veteran backup, and a rookie to develop. And right now, the Eagles could say, we have Wentz as our starter, and we've got a guy who's won a Super Bowl's backup. If they could find a way to keep them both on the Eagles, hey, go ahead, because you never know when Wentz could get hurt again.
They got tough decisions to make this offseason. That backup quarterback spot is certainly one of them, although he is signed. We'll see where that goes. They got a couple of guys on one-year deals that really helped win this championship. Howie Roseman pushed all the right buttons this offseason. But to be truly great, you got to make the really tough decisions and have the pulse of when to make a move and which guy's the right guy to replace, because you can't bring back the same team. But this was truly a special year for this team.
It was, and if let's say we're going to go ahead and move forward. If you're going to do that, you need to get an impact player. And if I'm them, if I'm going to do any kind of trade, I get some kind of a cornerback, because the Eagles have always subscribed. How Roseman subscribes to the idea that you build from the inside out and from the inside out and from front to back. So you start with the offensive lines and you move back. So he's always thinking that's what they need to do. And cornerbacks sometimes don't get as much adjustment in their system or as much emphasis in their system as they should. Just imagine what this defense will look like. Put it that way. Just imagine what this defense will look like if you had Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Bouye as your cornerbacks. Man, you could do a lot of different things. So I think the Eagles, if they could get a shutdown corner for him, maybe make that move. But otherwise, if I'm not getting a huge deal in return, and other teams should be thinking about making a huge deal for a Super Bowl MVP, but if I'm not getting a huge deal in return, I like my backup quarterback being that good.
Well, they will get Sidney Jones back next year, and we'll see what he brings to the table. Of course, all season long, the Eagles gave us a special season and ended it with their first ever Super Bowl championship. KC Joyner with us along the way, as the Eagles will now go into off-season mode for the first time ever as Super Bowl champions, and we'll have plenty to discuss as this offseason gets underway. So much fun this year, pal. We'll certainly be talking football through the offseason.
Sounds like a plan, man. Appreciate it.